Hello, I'm Nigel from Grass Media Web Design, and in this video we're going to look at the subject of website hosting, and it's in relation to a series of articles we're writing on living in peace with the Elementor for WordPress page builder. When it comes to websites, and particularly WordPress websites, and especially WordPress websites using Elementor, is the performance of your server, the hosting that you use, is going to have a huge impact, not only on your ability to edit successfully and live in peace with Elementor, but also in terms of your site speed once your website is launched to the waiting world. So this video is going to go through some of the stuff we write about in the article, the link of which I'll publish below. We're going to go through some of the things to look for when you're selecting your hosting. Have a look at some of the pitfalls, some of the traps, but more especially we're going to have a look at my preferred solution for hosting. I've been renting hosting space for 20 years now, and I've come across some good, some bad, and some really ugly hosting providers in my time. I've also come across good ones that go bad, and we should always be prepared to move hosts if a service degrades beyond what we consider to be acceptable. And normally, when a website starts, the performance of a website starts to degrade. It becomes slow to access. Your customers tell you it's taking a long time to get to the website, it's not working right, etc., etc. That might be a time to look at moving hosting, because they do change over time, and it's especially true with what's called shared hosting. And we'll talk a wee bit more about that as we go through this video. Now, this video isn't a polished one. It's just something I'm recording on this Sunday morning to help a few people along. You may hear doorbells ringing, phones ringing, dogs barking. Well, that's kind of just the way it is, and you'll certainly witness me slurping coffee from time to time. There we go, so you know what to expect. Okay, hosting. Think of hosting. If you're new to websites, you're probably new to hosting, and the way to think about your hosting is it's your home. It's your place where your website, your files, or your text lives and exists out there on the World Wide Web. And just like your home, like the place that you live in your life, sometimes you will move, but you don't want to do it too often. And it's exactly the same with website hosting. Sometimes you have to move when the roof collapses or the ground opens up and swallows your house, but you don't want to be moving too often. And so selecting the right host is a really big deal. And with literally thousands and thousands of firms worldwide looking to get your hosting business, it's sometimes difficult to select the right one. Hopefully this video and the articles that go with it will help you on that journey. There are a couple of golden rules with selecting hosting. One is there is no such thing as a free lunch. Hosting costs people money to run. The computers they run them on, etc., the support costs them money. So if they're going to give it you for free, or even very, very, very cheaply, then you probably should be a little bit suspicious. Another golden rule, it's going to cost you some money to have a website, a good website. And that may come as a surprise because you've used WordPress, which is free. There's a free version of Elementor. You may be using that. And so your mindset is free. But when it comes to hosting, when it comes to the place where your website or websites will live on the World Wide Web, be prepared to spend some money. So, like I say, I've been renting, buying hosting for 20 years. And I've come to a point now where I think I've settled on a hosting firm that gives me all that I need. And I'm quite technical. I've got a very technical background. If necessary, I can create a new server from scratch on a computer and launch it onto the web and configure it and manage it and everything else. I choose not to. My business is making websites for clients, and that's where my time is best spent. These days, I don't want to spend too much time dealing with the technical aspects of a server. Why should I? And like I said before, there's a lot of firms out there, but if you ask people using WordPress, ask people using WordPress with Elementor, you're going to see a couple of names that always appear towards the top. One of those is SiteGround. Now, SiteGround is a very, very popular option, and we'll just use it here at the moment as an example. A lot of people use SiteGround. A lot of people are very happy with it. It's reasonably priced. The performance, people tell me, is very good. I have actually used it, but not within the last 6 months or so. More on that later. When you hit SiteGround website, you're going to be offered all sorts of things, different things here: web hosting, WordPress hosting, WooCommerce hosting. Well, let me tell you, these three are the same. Yeah, once you've got a SiteGround account, you can launch a website onto it, and you can do it really quickly. SiteGround is really good at getting you up and running with that first website really quickly. This fourth one here, though, is different. It's cloud hosting, and I suppose the key difference here is with this option, and this option. By the way, by the time you look at this, it may be different. This is at the time of recording. This is what they call shared hosting. And what this means is there's a computer sat out on the World Wide Web, owned and managed or leased by SiteGround, and they will set up the infrastructure on which to host your website. But you're sharing that piece of hardware with a number of other customers. You'll never know how many. It could be 1 more, it could be 10 more, it could be 100 more. It could start with 10 more and end up with 100 more. The downside of that is it comes at a price, because whilst they use very clever software, very clever algorithms to what they call load balance the servers, you will always find that if you're using shared hosting, at some point the performance will drop off dramatically when somebody else joins SiteGround. They host their website there. They're trying to run a busy WooCommerce e-commerce site, and as a result, the performance of your website starts to suffer. We've seen it over and over again, and you call up support and they say, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. It's temporary. We'll move you to a new server, blah, blah, blah. And it starts again. I would advise strongly that if you can get away to start with, get away from using shared hosting. If you can possibly afford it, do so, and go to something called cloud hosting. Now, cloud hosting is relatively new. Basically, in concept, your website exists on a number of servers out there on the World Wide Web. Some may be in Europe, some may be in the US, some may be in India. I know some are in Dubai. And the resources are shared to you as a user, and your end users, they won't know the difference. But the great thing is that cloud hosting is incredibly reliable. It's very easily scalable as well, because when you start out, you don't know whether you're going to need a 2 gigabyte server with 4 gigabytes of RAM and a 128 gigabyte SSD disk drive. You don't know. So scalability is important, and cloud hosting gives you that advantage. So a big thing for me, if you can possibly afford it, go for cloud hosting. Your website is going to cost you some money, but if you have to start with shared, great, do it. You can get started for as little as $3 or $4 a month. By all means do it, but be prepared that at some point you're probably going to run up against server resource issues, which is going to lead you to move hosts or move plan or move home, to use that analogy. So SiteGround is one of those. I have used it. I'll give you a summary of it. I don't use it now. I used it. I found it fantastically easy to get the first site up and online. However, for me, I host websites for clients, and if you're using Elementor, you're probably going to need more than one website, because you're going to want a site for testing, for fault finding, etc., etc. It's always good to be able to have a clone of your site somewhere, what they call a staging site. And with the basic plan, you're probably not going to be able to do that. With cloud hosting, generally, you can do it as much as you wish. So I host a lot of websites for clients, currently about 63 or 64. And I rent a number of servers. And I have moved totally now, 100%, from SiteGround, where I found multiple sites difficult to manage. I moved from SiteGround to Cloudways. Cloudways is now my host of choice. Excuse me, time for a slurp of coffee. Thank you. So, I've moved entirely to Cloudways. Cloudways are a fairly new kid on the block, probably 2-3 years old. They're based in Malta, in the EU, but their business model is quite different to anything I've seen before. And that is, you can think of them as brokers. What happens is you sign up with Cloudways and they support, I think it's 5 different hosting providers or server providers, infrastructure providers. And they're all well-known names in the server game. And basically they provide the support for it. And to you as a user, as a manager of websites, as a builder of websites, you're not going to be aware of any difference. But one of the fantastic things about Cloudways is it's all a cloud-based platform. So there is no shared hosting, and you're not going to see any of the disadvantages of that. But the fantastic thing is, well, actually 2 fantastic things. One is it's totally scalable. Now, if you're just starting out with your first website, you're not going to know right now whether you're going to get 10 visitors a month, 1 million visitors a month, 10 million visitors a month, or whether you're going to be the next Amazon or Facebook. So when you first buy your hosting plan, you don't know. You don't really know what size server you need. You don't know what traffic, what bandwidth you're going to consume. So with Cloudways, you can start small and then easily scale. One-click scalability, right the way up to enterprise level, Amazon Web Services and Google infrastructures. And you can do all that within Cloudways at the click of a button. The other reason I think it's fantastic is they offer a standard a 3-day free trial. Now that 3 days may not seem much, but you know what? That's plenty. It's plenty to check it out. It's plenty to put a sample WordPress and Elementor site up. Have a look, have a feel of what it gives you. Of course, if you don't sign up after 3 days, you lose anything you've created. So I wouldn't use it to go and create your masterpiece, but certainly for looking and seeing and playing, it's fantastic. Now, they're not unique. Other people offer free trials. The difference with Cloudways is, and the reason I love it, is because it enables you to do that without having to enter any payment or credit card details. You can just play. If you don't like it, stop. So, in this video, I'm going to take you through setting up a free trial on Cloudways, and we'll then go into my paid plan and we'll look at some of the things that Cloudways offers you, and we'll cover why I think it's great. Yeah, you know, I can't speak highly enough. It's the best hosting solution that I found in my 20 years of renting hosting. So here goes. When you hit the Cloudways website, and I'll put a link below. I have to say, by the way, I'm not associated with Cloudways in any way. I do have all Cloudways customers have an affiliate link. So if you were to sign up with Cloudways and you think it's for you, no pressure, and you use the link below, I'll get a little bit of money back, and you'll get a little bit of money off your first bill. So it's kind of a win-win. If you're going to do it that way anyway, and we'll both win a little bit. But here we go. Let's get started for free. So this is all live. I'm not cutting video or anything else. So I'm going to give it my name, and we'll call, to avoid confusion, I'm going to give it a false name, but forgive me for that. Give it an email address I haven't used before, and give it a password I can remember. I'd best describe, this is just for marketing use, by the way. I'm going to use it for other business. This is nonsense. It's for marketing. I'm going to say 0 to 50. If you've got a promo code, I'm not aware of any, but you can enter it here. I agree. start free. And the first thing it's going to do, I guess, okay, here we are. Okay, so a little welcome thing here. You can start now and it'll give you a guide through. I'm not going to do that because this is kind of a guide through. And you'll see right from the off here, it's kind of you will always see down here when you look at servers, this kind of pay-as-you-go model, and that's exactly it. And that's another fantastic thing about it. You only pay for what you use. So right now I rent 3 servers on Cloudways. I rent another 2 on behalf of clients. But if I've got a particular need to add another server in for a while, I can do so. I can add in a server, I can scale it the size I want, but I only pay for it while I'm using it. So if I use it for 3 or 4 days, I've finished with it, I remove it, and I no longer pay for it. And you pay pro rata. So if I use it for 3 days, I only pay for 3 days. If I use it for 3 months, I pay for 3 months. It's really fantastic. That scalability, I can't tell you, compared to other hosting services, is invaluable. So the first thing it wants me to do is, I have limited choices here because I'm on free. Oh, by the way, it's asking me to validate. So I'm just going to check my email. Bear with me a sec. Here we go. I'm just going to activate my account because that's going to give me a bit more flexibility. Just bear with me a second. I'll just have a slurp of coffee if you'll forgive me. Okay, so I've now activated my account. I'm going to say we'll get started. There we go. Launch now. What does that do? We'll see. Okay, it's adding a server. What's it doing? Okay, cool. Right, I have now automatically got a server, right? It's located in London. I selected that. You can select if you're part of the world. Importantly, they've got servers all over the planet. So always select a server where you think the majority of your clients, your users, your viewers are going to be coming from. So if that's the US, choose a US location. If it's Europe, choose an EU location. India, similarly. So I'm in the UK. My nearest centre is London. Most of my clients will be from London, so that's what I've got. And it's just doing that now, and it's preparing the server, and it will be there soon. There's a little reminder up here. Expires in 3 days, and I can click on upgrade here at any time that I want. Now, just while it's doing that, that'll take a few minutes. Let's skip back across here and look at the article that we're in the process of writing. This is Living in Peace with Elementor. And if you're watching this and you don't have Elementor, forgive me. This is part of an Elementor tutorial. It's called Living in Peace with Elementor, and it's really getting around some of the common issues that we see reported about Elementor. Again, I'm not connected with Elementor, I'm just an Elementor user, have been for some time, and I love it. But some of the things you're going to see on the forums, Elementor has broken my website, things don't look right. I updated Elementor, now my website won't work. The Elementor editor won't load. Elementor slowed down my website. I moved my website from staging to production. Now it's not working. Some images are missing. I made some changes. Blah 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 blah. But these are the common ones. And looking at the forums, looking at the Facebook groups and so forth, we reckon quite conservatively around 60% of reported Elementor bugs are in fact issues caused by poor server hosting performance, where somebody has gone ahead with a cheap or even no cost hosting plan, loaded up Elementor, probably loaded up Elementor Pro and a whole bunch of other WordPress plugins, and the whole thing's chugging along at a snail's pace. And that's going to have an impact on Elementor. The most common is the editor won't load, simply because the server resources aren't there. So, whatever hosting plan you go for, make sure it meets the basic Elementor system requirements, and you can find those online easily. Just Google Elementor system requirements and it will pop up. So this is the article, and we talk a lot here in depth about hosting, and a lot of it is repeating what I've talked about. Here's the bit about geography, about where your server is located. We talk a bit about transferring your website. We talk a bit about the difference between cloud and shared. We also talk a wee bit about dedicated servers, but they're probably a bit more expensive than you need right now. And we talk about performance, availability and monitoring. So have a look at that article. It's available at grassmediaweb.com, and it will be the first in a series of helping you live in peace with Elementor Page Builder. So let's see what, we can close that window down now. Okay, it's still adding my server, so we better find other things to talk about. Oh yes, before long, when you come to adding any website, you're going to find something called DNS. DNS, Dynamic Name Services, or Dynamic Name Server as it's sometimes called, is a bit like the phone book of the internet. And what it does is your server out there, your hardware, is going to have an IP address. We'll see ours in a moment when it's finished. And you're going to want to point your domain name, assuming you've bought some sort of domain name. I'm using mine here, grassmediaweb.com, and I'm going to create what's called a subdomain, and I'm going to point that at an IP address. So what we're going to do is create a website now on Cloudways, and it will be available on the domain name cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. We'll go through setting that up. I host my DNS with 123reg. You can host it sometimes with your hosting provider. I like to keep my DNS separate. Excuse me. I like to keep my DNS separate for resilience, really. But whoever your DNS provider is, whether it's your host or your domain name registrar, you will see something similar to this. So you've got all sorts of DNS records. DNS can be quite complex. Look it up. There's loads of information out there, albeit quite technical and some difficult to understand. But for the purposes of this one, we're going to be adding Cloudways. It's a simple A record, and we're going to point it at that IP address. So where are we? Well, in our articles, we're probably down to about there. In our progress on that, our server is now ready. That was actually just over 2.5 minutes. There we go. So 2.5 minutes, I've now got my server there. And if I just click over here to applications, okay, so I have a project there, it's just a simple WordPress installation, I think. But from my server tab here, and this is another thing I love about Cloudways. By the way, this video window here will go at some point. If I click on that server, you've got some master access details. You probably won't need those anytime soon. But things I love about it is like monitoring. There's going to be no figures here, by the way. But you're going to be able to monitor details of the big key factors that you may not understand right now, but which you're going to need to. Things like idle CPU. This is a really good indication of how your server's performing. Free disk space, free memory is a big one, incoming network traffic, outgoing network traffic, all useful things. You can easily monitor those on Cloudways. It's awesome for that. The other thing I love about it, sorry if I sound like I want to marry it or something, but I am really passionate about this, is backups. With a lot of hosts, you need to set up the backups manually. I don't want to do that. I want to be sure that my backups are taken every night. In fact, they happen with me at about 2 a.m. every morning on all my websites. And I can set up some of the backup frequencies here. I've got daily here, but you can set it up 6 hours, 12 hours, every hour if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. You can set up the time it happens, etc. So happen in the middle of the night. You can take a backup on demand. That's really important. You may not realize it yet as a WordPress user, as an Elementor user, but the ability to restore, to back up and then restore an instance of your website with a single click is beyond value. Your website may be hacked. You may have broken it yourself somehow. You may have uploaded plugins which have broken your website. So the ability to restore a backup very quickly is invaluable, and you have that ability here on Cloudways. Similarly, things like managing the services, you can, if you're asking for help on some of the forums, somebody might say, well, increase your PHP memory limit. Well, with some hosts, you go into something called cPanel, and you struggle around trying to sort out which of the 128 icons you need to press and some of the terminology. But Cloudways make it really easy here. You can click on settings and packages. It'll go away, get the server settings, and I can easily now change my PHP memory limit to 256. I won't do that because it takes a couple of minutes to do. But there you go. So in terms of managing, monitoring, etc., Cloudways has got it all. And this is let's not forget, I'm still working on a free package here. So that's that. Let's look at our applications now. We've only got one. By the way, I shouldn't need to say this, but it is true. With some hosting providers, you're going to have to apply to add another website, or you're going to have to ask them to do it for you, pay some more money or whatever. Cloudways, done. If you want add another application, click Add Application. So by application, it means another website. Select your server, which is that one. There's only one at the moment. Say Add Application. It'll go away. What do you want to install? WordPress, WooCommerce, WordPress multi-site, clean, i.e. no applications. You can install loads of stuff, Joomla, Magento, e-commerce, all that kind of stuff. Single click. Again, I'm not going to do that right now, but there you can see. So if I look at the applications, the one I just created here, like so, it's giving it a dummy. Yes, thank you very much. Oh, while I'm here, it just reminded me. Cloudways have free SSL certificates. Don't pay for an SSL certificate. You don't need to. Cloudways integrates, lets encrypt SSL certificates very, very well. Very easy to set up, and we'll actually do that as we go through. So here's the dummy link it created, and I can now log into this. I'll just copy the password. Here it is. Put in my. Oh, that wasn't it. What did we use? And password. Log in. And here we go. So I'm not going to say those passwords. There's our WordPress install. I can visit it. It won't look very pretty, but we've done nothing. We can load up our Elementor, load up our plugins, give it a good try. Do whatever you like. You've got no restrictions in here. Something you will notice is you've got this up here, Breeze. Cloudways install their own caching plugin. Don't worry about it too much for now, other than it's looking after all the caching at the server level at this time. It does it pretty well. If you're ever asked to purge, by the way, just purge all cache and it's gone. But this is now available. It's now on that weird domain name. That's not very sexy. You're going to want to change that. So we're going to use cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. I can see its IP address. It's there. I'm going to go back to our DNS management, which will include Cloudways, spelled that right. Destination IP is that. I'm going to say add. And now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say domain management. I don't think I've done anything here that's very technical, have I? So cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. There we go. Now what this is going to do, effectively it's going to map that dummy domain name and that WordPress site that it's just created. It's going to map that to that cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. That's cool. But what it's actually doing is something in the background that you would often have to do manually. And that is all the internal links on your website, all the internal links within WordPress are going to be that weird and wonderful WordPress with the 324644 domain name we had here. It's gone away now. It's done all of that, but it's changed those internal links. It's all going to work out the box. That can save you a huge amount of time. So that's ready there. Our domain is set there. The question is, as with all things DNS, it can take some time to propagate around the web, but let's see if this will actually work. So I'm going to go Cloudways. I don't know what it's going to do if it doesn't work, by the way. .grassmediaweb.com. Oh, I spelled it right, yes. Oh, lo and behold, it's there. It's ready. Okay, fine. It's all done. How long did that take? The whole thing from signing up, honestly. It was nothing. I've got a fully functioning WordPress website here. Not pretty, but hey. Okay, so there we are. We'll just go back here for now. First thing I'm going to do before I do any building, I'm going to add an SSL certificate. It's free. Why wouldn't I do that? It was always going to need an email address. This can be any address which gets to you. We'll use, what shall I use? Okay, the domain name cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. Install certificate. Okay, it's using Let's Encrypt, which is a free service, but it does, Cloudways does this really simply, really easy. You can renew when you want to. It will remind you actually that your SSL certificate is expiring, so you need never worry about things like that happening. And what's going to happen when we've got our SSL certificate is we're going to get a nice little padlock on your website, top left here. It means it's got basic certification, basic authentication, and that's going to mean that you use the HTTPS protocol, which means that any activity to and from your website to the user's browser is encrypted, and that includes things like contact forms, whatever. So you're going to be nice and secure, nice and legit. Google's going to love you and rank you higher because of it. And I like to install an SSL certificate before I even start working on apps and working on the website. And this, by the way, is how we start setting up a client website. I use a domain name, I use a subdomain of my own domain name, and then when we're ready to launch under the customer's own URL web address, it's then a very easy migration. Okay, so while we're here looking at our applications, I'll just have a look back here so you can get excited. We've got a website. Looking back here, go to our applications, like so. Okay, so often when you're asking for support, when you're doing stuff, you're going to want to test, right? When you've got a website up and running, it's a really good idea to test new upgrades, new plugins, etc. On a clone server, on a staging server. Yeah. Staging really is just a technical name for a clone. There are some differences in the way it works. With the staging server, you can mess around with it, play with it, test it, and then when you're ready, you can push it back to the live application. I don't like doing that. A lot of people do. They do it very successfully. I just like to clone out the application and play with that and then go back and make the changes on the original. But that's just the way I prefer it. What I want to do, though, is somebody's going to say to you at some point, well, take a clone of your website, or you're going to want to do that. Cloudways just make it so easy compared to SiteGround, for example, where I played around with it for several hours and still couldn't get it to clone an application. I just click here and say clone and select the server. You've only got one. I can create it as staging. I don't want to do that. I just want to say continue, and that will give me a whole complete working copy of my website. Just like that, one click, pretty much, done. So that's, again, an invaluable service that Cloudways provides. I'm not going to do it right now. Again, takes a couple of minutes. Just have another slurp of coffee if you don't mind. Don't know why it says tea on my mug, really. It's my wife's name, not mine, but it's a nice mug. Ooh. Okay, so I have my app. I've set it up on Cloudways. I can play with it, break it, fill out this app, load Elementor, build out, try, experiment. If I like it, that's cool. One of the things we can do, by the way, just to have a look at, and bearing in mind, again, this is free. You know, you're going to come across something called site optimization and speed testing. If I go to GTmetrix, which is by far one of the most useful, and I put in here HTTPS cloudways.grassmediaweb.com. grass media, I really should have copied this, web.com. I'm going to analyze it from London. You may not have this choice, by the way. If you're using the free version of GT Metrics, you just have to use Vancouver, and I can say analyze. Now, what this is going to do is going to load the blank version of the website, and it's quite a good test of server performance. You do get, there we go, you can see the render of it now here. Okay, so look, that's you're on a free trial, lowest of the low options in Cloudways. You've got a page speed score of 97, a Y-slow of 90. Important thing here though, you've got a sub-second response. Now obviously as you start adding content and more plugins to that, you know, that will grow. But actually, you know what, for a cloud server, for a free version on the lowest of the low options, sub-second on even a blank website is pretty good going. So there you go. I'm very happy with that right now. There's our application. I can go in from the control panel here. We'll go to the admin panel. I'm just going to copy that password again. Okay, so there we go. I will save that. There we go. I can now add my Elementor. And if you look at the performance of this right now, how quick it is going to and from the WordPress repository, doing things like, okay, there we go, Elementor's in and running. I can now say create me a new page. I'm not going to go too far down this route. I'm going to make it an Elementor canvas type page. I'm going to give it a title of home, why wouldn't we? And say edit with Elementor. Again, look at the speed. Awesome, isn't it? We'll just give it a heading here and say, oh, by the way, themes. I would recommend when you're playing with Elementor, loading Elementor, using Elementor, use the Hello theme and get used to doing all your theming in Elementor. We've got other articles about that elsewhere, but just while we're doing this, that all looks good. I haven't got any photos or anything, so we're just going to keep it like that. We'll publish it. Not pretty. Go back to our dashboard. Go into settings, general. We'll call it a test website. Don't want to tag. There's our URL. I would normally go in and set up the locale language and time zone, etc. I'm not going to do that for now. We'll save that. Go into reading. I'm going to say homepage displays, home, save changes, visit site, et voila. There's our website up and running on Cloudways for you to, you're free to play with that, build websites, do what you need to do, testing, and you've got that for 3 days. Fantastic. If you do want to upgrade, and it'd be really good if you did, you could use upgrade my account. And this is the only time you're going to need to put in some billing information. Yeah. At any point, if you want to, we'll just back out of that a couple of times. If you do ever want to upgrade your server, no reason why you shouldn't start with the basics. It's 2 GB with a certain amount of bandwidth, etc. Plenty, honestly, plenty. 50 GB disk, probably more than you're going to need. Vertical scaling, and you can set your server size. So right now, this plan here is $22 a month. If you suddenly decide you're going to want more, okay, so it's 2 GB. This is the size of your virtual processor. 2 GB of RAM, 50 GB SSD hard disk, 2 TB transfer. Honestly, that's a load. Single core processor. The next one up, you can scale up to 4 GB. It says on trial I can't go to that, but if you did, it'd be $42 a month, and for that you get 4GB of RAM, 80GB SSD, 4TB transfer, plenty, 2-core processor. What I really love about it is that if I want to clone I can clone my whole server to Google, Amazon Web Services, or anything like that, and pretty much with a click of a button. And if I did want to scale this and do it now, I'd hit scale now, and it would go away for 5 minutes or so. It will create you that whole new server. It will create you everything else, to put all your existing websites on it, do all the configuration. Click of a button. Honestly, it is awesome. If you want to go backwards, you can. So if you find that you're paying for resources that you don't need, simply reduce it. Awesome. Reduce it, reduce your bill. Awesome. So that's it. Cloudways. I'll put a link below. It is an affiliate link. If you want to go with Cloudways, fantastic. I get $20. I think you get $15 off your first bill. So it pretty much halves your first bill on the plan. Use it. Be great. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it was useful. It's like nothing to do with Cloudways. I just love it as a hosting platform. Highly recommended. And read the articles. Again, links below. And that's all for now, I think. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Thanks again. Cheers.